Today on Studio One, it busted doors and broke records. We'll tell you how much this year's Black Friday shopping increased. Also, some artists opened the doors to their homes so people can browse. And some streets have a story. We'll ride down a one-of-a-kind road.
From the University of North Dakota, this is Studio One, celebrating 25 years.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Studio One. I'm Monty Cashel.
And I'm Katie Fletcher. Well, the concept of a freezer is you put things in there so you can preserve them for later use.
And hopefully not forget the stuff at the bottom.
Exactly. And, you know, the healthcare industry has latched on to this idea.
Sure.
Women can freeze their eggs, and people can also freeze their stem cells.
Okay.
And the concept is to kind of freeze them now when you're healthy and free of diseases in case you do get a disease later on in life, and that could potentially help cure that disease. And later on, we'll have a guest on the show that actually owns a company that does stem cell banking, which is where they freeze the cells.
All right, we'll be talking to him later in the show. Also, the holiday season includes Thanksgiving, Christmas, and you could argue now Black Friday. We'll tell you what shopping records were broken from the retail revival.
And psychological disorders are common. Drugs are often used as treatment. Later, we'll meet a woman who treats attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. She'll tell us how prescription drugs are used and abused.
But first, here's today's news with Ali Strand.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. President Barack Obama and former rival Mitt Romney had lunch together on Thursday. The meeting at the White House is their first time speaking since the election. Obama says he is looking forward to talking with Romney on how to move the country forward. Romney has chosen to stay out of the spotlight since his defeat. He says he will also meet with former running mate Paul Ryan while in Washington. It's estimated that this is only the 7th time the presidential candidates have met face-to-face. Many Republicans remain troubled after meeting with Ambassador Susan Rice earlier this week. Rice is a top contender to be nominated for the Secretary of State. The GOP members say they are not satisfied with the way she answered questions about the Benghazi attacks in September. Rice says she spoke out with the information she was given at the time by the CIA. Rice's critics say they will not endorse her nomination until they get more information. Childhood obesity is an increasing epidemic as more young people are lured to video games and television. But now video games could actually get your kids moving. A study published in Pediatrics shows less than 15% of adolescents get regular physical activity. With childhood obesity tripling in the past 30 years, some workout facilities are trying innovative ways to get kids active. Interactive digital games that require physical movement is known as exergaming. This can include dancing, boxing, or pedaling an exercise bike.
The kids come in here to play with a game, and they are being so physically active because they all involve movement. So they're working out and they don't even really realize they're doing it. So we're getting them active indirectly, doing something fun.
Current guidelines recommend that youth engage in 60 minutes of moderate or vigorous physical activity most days of the week. 12/21/12, a date that has been predicted by some to be the ultimate doomsday. This is the day that Mayan calendars end on, a source of many apocalypse predictions. Experts say it is highly unlikely that the end of our time is near. NASA recently confirmed that many magnetic shifts, star alignments, or wayward planets are not anticipated either. They say the only unique thing about this day is the 2012 winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. For years, the crazy people during the holidays were usually extended family members at the Thanksgiving dinner table. But now you can find them among the throng of millions of people looking for a good deal on Black Friday.
A record 247 million shoppers opened their wallets last weekend. The National Retail Federation calls this as impressive as we've seen. Black Friday may be known as the most chaotic time of year for shopping, but with chaos comes insane discounts and deals. People may think that working on one of the busiest days of the year would be a drag, but some say otherwise.
It's just the funnest day of the year to work because of the simple fact that associates are excited, our customers are excited, people are waiting for this day. In years past, you opened later, and now it's opening earlier and earlier.
Seats are opening in the big. After years of belt tightening and a tough economy, Americans were apparently in the mood to shop this year. U.S. retailer sales over the 4-day holiday weekend increased an estimated 12.8%.
These would be cute.
More than 35 million Americans visited retailer stores and websites Thanksgiving Day, up from 29 million last year. Besides having some stores open on what's now called Great Thursday, an earlier Thanksgiving has allowed even more days for shopping.
It should be better for us because of the simple fact you pick up an extra weekend this year compared to last year. So that should benefit us.
ComScore, an internet technology company that measures online behavior, says sales online topped over $1 billion for the first time. With Great Thursday and Black Friday coming together, it should make for a very white Christmas. Reporting for Studio One, I'm Taylor Nelson.
The statistics show that on average each shopper spent $423, yet last year they spent $398. And that's the news for now. Monty and Katie?
Thanks, Allie. It's getting real hard to keep all the days straight.
Oh, it is. It's kind of turning into a whole week of savings almost.
I don't know which day is which anymore.
Nope. All right, well, it's time now for the weather news with Stephanie Waldrop.
Thanks, Katie and Monty. The West Coast is about to receive a lot of moisture as what is called an atmospheric river moves into the area. Now, an atmospheric river is a mix of the jet stream, which is right here, along with the low pressure system, which brings up moisture from the Pacific Ocean into areas along the West Coast. Now, storms like these usually originate adjacent to the Hawaiian Islands, and so they have received the nicknames of Pineapple Express. Now, what we are looking at here is satellite imagery of the water vapor or the moisture that is in the air. This orange color right here is the dry air, and then the white and the blue colors are the moist air. As I put this into motion, we can see the narrow path that the moist air is going to take towards the coast, and that is what is going to bring a lot of moisture to the areas of California and Oregon. Now, with storms like these, it is not uncommon to see more than 100 inches of snow in the higher elevations, but with this system in particular, they could see 20 inches of snow in the mountains and then up to 10 inches of rain on the coast of California and Oregon, and then people in the areas of Nevada could also be seeing the effects of this system. Now, this is a lot of precipitation at one time, but it is actually necessary and beneficial to the area, with 30 to 50% of the precipitation, of the yearly precipitation, coming from storms like these. Now, along with a lot of moisture, strong winds are also forecasted, with gusts of up to 70 miles per hour possible. Now, looking ahead to the rest of the week, it is going to be much warmer throughout the United States, especially in the central plains, just a little cooler down in the southeastern areas of Florida and Georgia. And as far as precipitation goes, it is going to be wetter than average in the upper northeast. And then, like I said, it is going to be wetter than average on the west coast because of that atmospheric river, and then drier than average in areas of Texas stretching into the central plains. Now, that brings us to our weather question of the day. What was the first name the Weather Channel gave a winter storm? And our answers are Athena, Aphrodite, Artemis, and Apollo. And later on in the show, we are going to have a story about how the Weather Channel has started to name winter storms.
All right, thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Naming storms. I wonder how they do that. They just throw names in a hat and come up with something?
Those were all A's, so.
Yeah, they like going down the line,
right.
At least with hurricanes. All right, let's go along down the line to Brian Gendro. He's got some sports highlights for us.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. Whether it's a championship trophy or friendly bragging rights, every person feels the pressure of competition. A study has found there may be a way for athletes to loosen the noose when the game is on the line. The American Psychological Association recently published a study that claims right-handed athletes who squeezed a ball in their left hand before competing were less likely to choke under pressure. The study states this helps because squeezing the left hand increases the amount of blood movement to the right hemisphere of the brain.
Doing something like making this motion or taking a ball and actually squeezing it, you're going to get more activation, and thus you're going to engage more operations that could help you in an athletic event.
The researchers say this movement of blood helps steady the athlete's heartbeat as well as maintain their focus. It's now time for the Studio One Sports Trivia question. Which team did Brett Favre not defeat during his tenure as a quarterback in the NFL? The Indianapolis Colts, the Green Bay Packers, the Patriots, or D, none of the above? The answer to that question will be coming up later in the show. That's the sports for now. Monty and Katie?
Thanks for that, Brian. In a new mob film, one man's job is to execute unpleasant tasks for his superiors. Brad Pitt plays the lead character in the new movie, Killing Them Softly. We'll preview that film.
Also, final exams often define success in college. Our next guest will talk to us about how these pressures to succeed lead some students to abuse prescription drugs.
Life is busy, but many professionals are finding ways to advance their career with a Master's in Business Administration at the University of North Dakota. Students attend UND online and on campus. The program is nationally recognized and emphasizes one-on-one with faculty. Find the title you deserve. Enroll today.
At the University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, classes have real-life application. Mentors guide students. Our work improves quality of life by answering tough questions with creativity and innovation. The University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, training tomorrow's engineering and geology experts today.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
This scene is familiar, but you and your friends are at risk. 1 in 3 Americans will die from heart disease or stroke. Think about it, 1 in 3. Every day, more than 2,000 Americans die from cardiovascular disease. The Million Hearts Initiative works to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes. Understand the risks, get active, and reduce sodium and trans fats in your diet. It's a silent killer, but now is the time to take control of your health. Learn more about making a heart-healthy future.
From the University of North Dakota, celebrating 25 years, this is Studio One.
Attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder affects children and adults. Prescription drugs are one form of treatment. Many college students know what it takes to get those drugs prescribed. Psychiatric nurse practitioner Nicole Wilson works with college students with ADHD and also knows how the prescription drugs are abused. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Can you describe ADHD first of all for me? What are the symptoms?
Sure. So ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder with the primary symptoms being inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. Not everyone meets criteria for all of those, but those are the primary symptoms that you'll see.
Okay. Is this something that is just increasing, the number of cases?
What we see in terms of prevalence, a lot has changed in terms of our understanding of ADHD. Diagnostic criteria have changed over the years, and also practitioners have become more adept at identifying it, so you'll see prevalence numbers increase. And we just are starting to realize that symptoms and impairment continue into adulthood, whereas we used to feel that it was a child-adolescent disorder.
You're talking about diagnosing, and actually I'm going to move your mic just a little bit. Your hair's getting there. Perfect. All right. Now, you're talking about diagnosing ADHD. How do you diagnose?
So diagnosis generally, it depends on what stage you're noticing symptoms at. Children are often identified in a school setting where teachers will realize that they're having problems performing or they're having problems sitting still and they're interrupting in the classroom. At the college level, where I typically see students is, they're just not succeeding academically. And so they'll come into me at times for an interview, and I will take a history, make sure that there aren't any other medical problems or any other psychiatric issues, substance abuse issues. And then what will happen is that I will refer them to a psychologist for further objective testing that's a lot more extensive.
So the testing goes through. Sometimes prescription drugs are part of to help with this. I'm going to move this down just a little bit more. There we go. Now it's perfect. There's drug abuse that happens with these things. I work with college students quite a bit, and it was a surprise to me that it was, oh yeah, I know of people who take Adderall or other drugs for ADHD to help them during finals, and I was confused. Can you explain what's going on?
Sure. Unfortunately, one of the main treatments for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is medication, and one of the main classes of medications that we use to treat it are stimulant medications. And so those do have a potential or a risk to become abused, but they don't necessarily have that response in a person that will have ADHD. And so students without the disorder might take them to maximize concentration or pull an all-nighter or something like that. It's very dangerous though. They can become addicting. A lot of students aren't aware either that it's a felony to obtain those medications in that way. So we're trying to do our part to really educate.
And okay, so that might be the reason they take these drugs. What about some of the negative side effects that are?
So negative side effects of a stimulant medication can cause, it depends on the dose that you would take, but can cause increases in heart rate, blood pressure, heart palpitations, headaches, insomnia, even psychosis we've seen if somebody was to overdose on the medications, and depending on the dose, I mean even death if they were to take really.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not absolutely safe to just abuse these things.
No, it certainly can carry a lot of risks.
Okay. Now, people come in, they get tested. Some of these people know how to trick the system. How do they do that?
Well, unfortunately, certainly any of the subjective questions a person could answer in a way that could be misleading in terms of the symptoms that they're having. That's where we will refer out for computerized testing that will monitor more objectively the level of attention and concentration that they're able to perform at. We also will get collateral information from parents, from spouses or significant others. We take a look at grades and how are they performing, and sometimes that's a little difficult to recall at a young age.
Well, okay, if someone's watching right now that may be thinking of abusing these drugs, what would you say in your role to them?
It's a quick fix for really a long-term problem, I think, is what I would say, and really to avoid doing it. I've unfortunately seen some really good, high-achieving students that got in a position where they set goals for themselves that were a little too lofty. They didn't understand the legal risks, and they ended up getting caught and really ended up with some significant consequences. So I'd say really think about that. And then the safety piece as well. I've seen some really significant reactions that are very dangerous. So.
Sure. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on today for something that's kind of happening in the background that isn't right in front of everybody's eyes. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, for one man, a life on the ice has made an impact much further than the hockey rinks. We'll profile a retired coach whose reputation earned him a spot in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Also, art can be seen in a variety of places. When it comes to artists displaying their work, it is usually found in a gallery. We'll meet an artist who invites others into her home to see her creativity.
Studio One closed captioning is underwritten in part by Options, your disability information source.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
My doctor tells me to play outside every day.
I see a physician assistant in my rural clinic. I'm glad that she's here.
But healthcare is changing.
Rural North Dakota communities face workforce shortages, particularly in primary care. The University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences addresses the state's healthcare needs by educating the next generation of healthcare professionals. We advocate for improved health in rural communities.
Your future depends on this moment. Take the path that leads to your future.
The University of North Dakota is a place where students thrive, where personal connections matter, where classmates become friends, where leading scholars become mentors. Experience our expertise. Creative, innovative, entrepreneurial, spirited. This is the University of North Dakota.
Mobster movies have been popular for many years. The new movie Killing Them Softly is looking at crime from an inside perspective. 3 broke criminals decide to rob a mob-protected card game. The heist causes a collapse in the local crime economy. The mob community decides to hire an enforcer to restore order. He's played by Brad Pitt. Typical bad guy Ray Liotta stars as the card dealer who was framed during the robbery. He says playing the nice bad guy was a change for him.
I would always give the punch, but it's a whole other thing to take the punch, and they taught me how to do that.
The actors in the film wanted to do as many of their own stunts as they could handle. Killing Them Softly carries an R rating and opens nationwide November 30th. Now it's time to look at the events happening in your area. The holidays are known for sharing gifts with others. A group of artists in Grand Forks, North Dakota hosts a holiday tradition. They open their homes to present and sell their collections to the public. We had the chance to become acquainted with the event's organizer and her own artistic style.
Albert Einstein once said that true art is characterized by an irresistible urge in the creative artist. For Jackie Euthis, this quote mirrors her own artistic style.
I just dive into it. It's a dumb way to do it, really.
It's this impulse that inspires her eclectic masterworks, from gourds, glass, woodwork, and wool.
There's so many possibilities, and you're just thinking about which one are you going to use? Which one are you going to go for?
The ongoing evolution of ideas never gives Jackie artist block.
I have ideas that are just always there, and sometimes I wish they weren't, because I drive myself sort of nuts.
After dragging her daughters to galleries when they were knee-high to a canvas, inspiration grew.
I can see how seeing all those different master works at the Smithsonian and all of these really great museums across the country, how much that has affected my life.
Though the artistic styles aren't mother like daughter, the same passion did not skip a generation.
It is something that I love, and I am, I guess you could say, a little bit obsessed with it.
The public usually see art by pressing their faces against a glass window, but Jackie opens the door to her own home.
There's a certain element of risk, I think, to inviting people into your home, because it is your own personal space.
Yet unlike her ceramic pots and gourds, Jackie's greatest creative accomplishment would be molding her own daughter's artistic aspirations. With photographer Corey Robertson, I'm Ann Hook reporting for Studio One.
Jackie was one of 13 artists who presented their art this year. She got the idea to have an art show in her home after attending a similar festival in Minneapolis. A portion of the money sold from the artist's pieces are given to charities of their choice. Coming up, tropical storms and hurricanes have been officially named since 1960, and now some think their winter counterparts should follow suit. Find out why naming winter storms and blizzards is generating debates. That story, plus news, sports, and weather in the next half hour of Studio One.
Closed captioning for Studio One is underwritten in part by NDAD, helping others to help themselves.
At the University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, classes have real-life application. Mentors guide students. Our work improves quality of life by answering tough questions with creativity and innovation. The University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, training tomorrow's engineering and geology experts today.
Life is busy, but many professionals are finding ways to advance their career with a Master's in Business Administration at the University of North Dakota. Students attend UND online and on campus. The program is nationally recognized and emphasizes one-on-one with faculty. Find the title you deserve. Enroll today.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
From the University of North Dakota, celebrating 25 years, this is Studio One.
Welcome back to Studio One.
Thanks for joining us today. Well, this past November election decided a lot of things. One of the topics was legalizing marijuana, and Colorado and Washington said yes, and so we wanted to know what people thought about that. Their answers are still to come on the show. Also coming up in the next 30 minutes on Studio One, in the 1960s, Norway called on the U.S. for help with drilling oil. Today, the roles have been reversed. We'll tell you about the Norwegian ties that run oil deep.
Also, many communities like to preserve their history. Our city's history carries with it a bumpy experience that hasn't changed since the horse and buggy.
And nobody can know for sure whether they will develop a disease later in life. Later on in the show, we'll meet a man who started a company that allows people to be prepared for future ailments. But first, here's today's news with Ali Strand.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. Despite hope of bipartisan negotiations to help the country's financial crisis, little has been accomplished on Capitol Hill. House Speaker John Boehner met with President Obama on Wednesday to discuss plans to avoid the fiscal cliff. Boehner says that no substantial progress has been made in the discussion between the House and the President. Republicans are suggesting spending cuts to combat the cliff. The President, however, proposed raising the individual tax rate for the top 2% of Americans. The fiscal cliff will be triggered at the end of the year when the Bush-era tax cuts expire. The lucky tickets were sold in Arizona and Missouri that won the second largest jackpot in U.S. history. The pot this year was $672 million, but some might wonder where all that money from ticket sales actually goes. While 60 cents of every state lottery dollar goes to the winner, a portion is given to an Italian gaming company that helps to run the lottery in the U.S. That only leaves a remaining 11 cents for government and state services, which these games were created to help. Once the snow starts falling, people gear up for cold weather and cold symptoms. Though many are ready for the flu and sniffles, there is one disease that people aren't always prepared for: tuberculosis. The disease, otherwise known as TB, primarily affects the lungs. Recent outbreaks in Florida and North Dakota has drawn attention to the illness. According to the Center for Disease Control, over 9 million cases of TB were reported in 2011 worldwide. 10,000 of those cases were in the U.S. Although TB is airborne, health officials say it's not easily contracted.
In order to transmit TB, you need to cough deeply from your lungs, deep enough so that the phlegm in your lungs gets brought out. It's not just a sneeze or a cold.
Officials say TB cannot be transmitted from touching, sharing food and water, or kissing. Backyard birthday parties may never be the same after the publishing of a new analysis. The journal Pediatrics reports that the bounce houses are causing more damage than before. In 2010, 31 kids were injured each day. That's more than 11,000 a year. The injury rate is now only a little less than trampoline injuries. The most common afflictions were broken bones and sprains. When Norway struck oil 40 years ago, they had to ask the U.S. for help to exploit its natural resources. Last year, the Norwegian oil company Statoil bought an American oil company, Brigham, for $4.4 billion. This has caused their roles to change.
The Norwegian oil adventure started in 1969 when oil was discovered in the Norwegian shelf of the North Sea.
We knew that we did not have the skills and competence to do this alone, but we also knew that we were going to develop these skills, these capacities.
Today, the Ekofisk oil field is still operational.
It was supposed to be shut down last year.
Companies like Phillips, Conoco and Exxon still work on the Norwegian shelf.
They have been instrumental in developing Norwegian resources, and they still are. And I hope that these companies will continue to invest in Norway for decades into the future.
But with Statoil's purchase of Brigham and the official visit from the Norwegian ministry to North Dakota, the roles have changed.
It's good that we are able to go global with our capacities and our knowledge.
Owned 67% by the Norwegian state, Statoil announced earlier this year they hope to triple their oil and natural gas production in America within the next decade. This creates more jobs in the US, but it's clear that Norwegian public companies like Statoil and the Norwegian pension fund is making profits from its investment in natural resources on the American continent.
Today, this fund has grown into being the biggest sovereign wealth fund in the world. It holds values for around between 600 and 700 billion US dollars.
The Norwegian oil adventure has now gone full circle, from the wild North Sea to the new Wild West. Reporting for Studio One, Dag Amdem.
The Norwegian minister is also a farmer. He said he was very interested in visiting North Dakota farms between meetings during his official visit to the United States. And that's news for now. Monty and Katie?
Thanks a lot. It's good to see we're working together.
Definitely is. Well, it's time now for the weather news with Stephanie Waldroff.
Thanks, Katie and Monty. Fort Lauderdale has been experiencing a problem of beach erosion starting after Hurricane Sandy ripped through the area about a month ago. Now, the beach erosion is actually slowing drivers down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, causing one of the roads that has always been a 4-lane to now be turned into a 2-lane, with the southbound lanes going one route. However, transportation officials have actually installed concrete barriers over the weekend to prevent further erosion because there's going to be a full moon, which will cause for a higher tide. There is no final plan to fix the problem. However, there will be a meeting as to whether or not they will resolve the beach. In the meantime, the DOT is watching it in hopes that it is going to become better. Now, Fort Lauderdale is one of the main areas that is being affected by this, with almost 100 yards of length across the beach being affected and costing a lot of money in damage. Could cost over billions of dollars, and hopefully it gets a little better with the high tides and those concrete barriers up. Now, with winter coming, that means winter storms are also around the corner, but this year it might be a little easier to keep track of them.
In areas that see harsh winters, it's not unlikely to hear a story about that blizzard from back in the day. A new naming scheme put into use by the Weather Channel now gives a name to these cold weather rogues.
Probably the reason that they would like to name storms is the similar reason why we name hurricanes. It really helps the emergency managers and the National Weather Service to communicate with the public about threats that would threaten lives and property.
Naming winter storms is not a new concept. In Europe, winter storms have been named since the 1950s. In the United States, however, this concept is still under the weather. Although the Weather Channel's intentions are good, the National Weather Service has declared that even a named storm such as this one may only yield light snow, and therefore the criteria aren't strict enough to adopt this policy. In addition to concerns about what criteria a storm must meet before it is named, are concerns about who gets to do the naming.
It has the potential to confuse the public. For instance, what if every different media organization, all the newspapers and all the TV stations all gave the same storm a different name?
Until there's an official naming procedure, winter storms will just have to continue living on as that blizzard from back in the day. This is Tim Ullman reporting for Studio One.
Local media outlets such as the Grand Forks Herald has actually been naming storms like this for quite some time. Now that brings us back to our weather question of the day. What was the first name that the Weather Channel gave a winter storm? And the answer is Athena. Now the names are being used in alphabetical order, and they've already had A and B, so C will be next.
All right, interesting. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right, and those Greek names?
Yeah, well, most of them seemed like philosophers and stuff anyway. Yeah.
All right, well, let's turn again to sports and Brian Gendro.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. In athletics, most coaches believe that winning is the most important thing, but one Grand Forks hockey legend believes there is much more to the game.
It is only fitting that Serge Gambucci's life began in Eveleth, Minnesota, because it is home to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. As a kid growing up in northeast Minnesota, he spent his days playing sports, including football and hockey.
And all we wanted to do was play. We didn't know or we didn't care who won.
After high school, he served overseas during World War II and then attended St. Cloud State University, where he decided he wanted to teach and coach. His coaching career did not take off until he arrived in Grand Forks, North Dakota in 1955. He began teaching and coaching hockey at Grand Forks Central High School. His success did not take long, winning not one, not two, but 10 state championships in a row from 1961 to 1970. These were the first 10 state tournaments in North Dakota hockey history. Serge is a man who believed in teaching his players about the sport, but more about teaching them the tools they would need after them.
I would mention if you did this on the job, you'd probably get fired. So change your attitude, change your style.
Statistics, wins and losses weren't the most important things to him. Teaching them responsibility, to be accountable, and get along with one another were specific things he preached to his players.
And I treated them all alike. And if they needed a kick in the rear, I gave it to them, or a pat on the back, I gave it to them.
Serge says he was not looking to win 10 state championships when he started coaching. He simply wanted to make a difference in his players' lives. Winning was just the added bonus. I'm Taylor Braith reporting for Studio One.
Serge was inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame in 1996 in his hometown of Eveleth, Minnesota. He will turn 90 years old on January 11th. Now the answer to this week's Studio One Sports Trivia question. Which team did Brett Favre not defeat during his tenure in the NFL? The answer is D. As a matter of fact, Brett Favre has beaten all 32 teams in the NFL. That's the sports. Monty and Katie?
Thanks, Brian. Much of the nation followed the past election numbers because of the tight race between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. Some kept track for the particular issue of marijuana legalization. Now that legalization is passed in Colorado and Washington, we wanted your thoughts on the issue. Your answers are still to come.
Also, construction to roads is constantly being done to improve its quality. We'll see a road that never changes because of its historical significance.
This scene is familiar, but you and your friends are at risk. 1 in 3 Americans will die from heart disease or stroke. Think about it. 1 in 3. Every day, more than 2,000 Americans die from cardiovascular disease. The Million Hearts Initiative works to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes. Understand the risks, get active, and reduce sodium and trans fats in your diet. It's a silent killer, but now is the time to take control of your health. Learn more about making a heart-healthy future.
At the University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, classes have real-life application. Mentors guide students. Our work improves quality of life by answering tough questions with creativity and innovation. The University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, training tomorrow's engineering and geology experts today.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
Most people don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. My time clock is around the clock. My ideas are fresh, but they need research and development. My business plan includes marketing strategies, legal documents, and a budget. My startup became possible through mentorship, hands-on experience, and learning from experts in the field. The Center for Innovation has contributed to more than 400 University of North Dakota student startups. Come with an idea. Leave with a business.
Awarded the overall excellence in cable TV by the Northwest Broadcast News Association, this is Studio One.
When many think of historic sites, old homes or ancient statues may come to mind. In one North Dakotan community, history is right beneath their feet.
Communities constantly mend and remend roads, but an area of streets in Grand Forks, North Dakota have gone a long time without replacement.
Because I ride my bike through there, and it's shaking the handles pretty good.
The cracked pavement provides drivers with a bumpy ride. Some avoid the rough roads, but others look past the bumps and cracks.
You walk down them or even drive down them. You really can picture yourself back 100 years.
Grand Forks is home to Bloom granitoid paved streets. Composed of layers of cement inlaid with various sizes of pebbles, the sturdy pavement is often mistaken for cobblestones or bricks.
People think that they're blocks. They're not. It's stamped concrete.
Each block was individually stamped by hand, giving the pavement its brick-like look. Although attractive, the finish was meant to accommodate horses, as the roads were made during the transition between horsepower and automobiles.
We rebuild roads all the time. It doesn't even occur to a person that they could be 100 years old, and they are.
Constructed in 1910 and 1911, the granitoid roads are now more than a century old.
They really have outlasted modern technology. And you're right, that is ironic, because I don't know that people intended them to last 100 years.
But last they did. The cement roads have remained usable. But however impressive their longevity has been, many aren't happy to take their modern-day vehicles on streets that once transported horse and buggy.
Yeah, they're driving on a bad road is what they're thinking. It's not like, oh, this is great.
Areas of the granitoid have declined in recent years, leading some to question, why preserve the broken streets at all?
As far as we know, the Grand Forks granitoid is the only significant amount of granitoid left in place anywhere in the States.
The only of their kind in the nation, areas of the Bloom granitoid streets are listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. The distinction protects parts of the roadways from removal, but it isn't meant to stop the community from moving forward.
People change, things change, you grow, the community grows.
O'Leary acknowledges that areas of the road must go, but she says that keeping some granitoid preserves an important tie to history.
History shouldn't just be on the East Coast. It shouldn't just be Washington's home or Jefferson's home or everything that you can visit in D.C. We have history right here, and some of it's very important.
So although the century-old roads may not drive like they used to, a piece of history will remain cemented in the Grand Forks community. With photographer Kelby Leak, this is Katie Mullally reporting for Studio One.
Women played a large part in the decision to pave the roads in the city. Many did not want to live in a community where they would have to drag their skirts through the mud. You've heard of recreational activities such as hiking, knitting, and playing chess, but now, at least in 2 states, there is recreational pot. Colorado, Washington, and Oregon voted this past election on referendums to legalize marijuana for recreational use. Voters said yes to legalization in Colorado and Washington. We wanted your thoughts on the new marijuana laws.
I do not think the new pot laws are good because they'll lead to gateway for more drugs to be legalized.
In moderation, in the right circumstances, it's okay, I think.
I think they're bad because a lot of people will take advantage of them. I think they're good because what harm can they do?
No, I do not. I do not agree with it.
I think it depends on the person. Some people are irresponsible with it, some are responsible with it. Just like alcohol.
I think it's bad because it's a bad influence on people.
I believe it is good because as long as the people pass the proposition, that is what democracy is all about.
A comment from our Facebook page from Mankato, Minnesota. Ashley says, I am torn because although I don't support the recreational use of marijuana, where do we draw the line as a society as what substances should be legal and shouldn't? Another from Narragansett, Rhode Island. Jordan says, the reality is that the issue will not go away until there's a successful test run that can be referenced for future laws. So Colorado and Washington could be those cases. Still to come, stem cell research is constantly progressing. Next, we'll talk to a man who can freeze your healthy stem cells now in the hopes of healing you in the future.
Studio One is a television show produced by students at the University of North Dakota.
You can be a part of the graphics team, the marketing team, news team, programming team, production team.
Training never ends.
You get to produce guests, you get to do the reporting side of it.
It's really worth the experience. You will not regret it.
This scene is familiar, but you and your friends are at risk. 1 in 3 Americans will die from heart disease or stroke. Think about it, 1 in 3. Every day, more than 2,000 Americans die from cardiovascular disease. The Million Hearts Initiative works to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes. Understand the risks, get active, and reduce sodium and trans fats in your diet. It's a silent killer, but now is the time to take control of your health. Learn more about making a heart-healthy future.
My doctor tells me to play outside every day.
I see a physician assistant in my rural clinic. I'm glad that she's here.
But healthcare is changing.
Rural North Dakota communities face workforce shortages, particularly in primary care. The University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences addresses the state's healthcare needs by educating the next generation of healthcare professionals. We advocate for improved health in rural communities.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
Healthcare is constantly improving. There are now ways for people to freeze their own stem cells. The hope is for people to use those cells in case they need them to heal themselves later. Founder and CEO of Next Healthcare Inc., Vin Singh, is here to discuss stem cell banking. Thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
What is your role within the company?
I'm the founder and CEO of the company, so I'm leading the company, leading the strategy, building a team, and making sure we hit our goals.
Wait, why was this company created?
Well, the idea came about 7 years ago. A technology called IPS technology was discovered, and that's a technology where you can take a skin cell and convert it into a stem cell, and then that stem cell can become any cell type in the body. It was at that point where I said, wow, this is a big deal. And with my background in cell therapy, I understood what the pros and cons of that approach would be. And I said to myself, everybody has to bank their cells. This is a must. And then a few years later, I started Next Healthcare. And now we offer skin cell banking and stem cell banking and other services related to that.
Okay, and we're going to kind of break it down now. What is a stem cell?
A stem cell is defined as a cell that has unlimited or virtually unlimited ability to multiply and unlimited ability to differentiate into all the different cell types in your body.
What is the potential healing power behind the stem cell?
It's unlimited because that's what we're created from, right? That's how we started. So stem cells can be differentiated into heart cells, nerve cells, lung cells, pancreatic cells. So the potential is unlimited.
Now, stem cells have to be extracted from the body somehow. What is this process?
So there's different ways you can do it. Right now, you have stem cells circulating in your body. We collect blood, and we are able to isolate some of those cells, and we store them in our liquid nitrogen tanks. We also collect skin samples. You can get stem cells from your bone marrow, and that's a pretty well recognized approach. There are 50,000 bone marrow transplants done a year worldwide, and the reason is, the reason they're effective is the stem cells that are in there. There's also stem cells in fat. There's stem cells in every tissue in your body.
And now you mentioned storing the stem cells. What is the banking aspect? Can you explain that?
So the cells, after we process them, we store them in multiple vials, and that's your bank. And that allows you to have several opportunities to use those cells in the future. They're stored in liquid nitrogen. The reason is liquid nitrogen is at a temperature that is so low that all metabolic activity in the cell stops. It's like suspended animation. And that allows you to store these cells for, theoretically forever, but certainly for a very, very long time.
What are some of the diseases that, are being looked at as potential diseases to be treated from stem cell?
Stem cells right now are in the clinic for about a dozen different disease categories, pretty much anything you can think of. The ones I like to talk about the most are the later stage, so phase 3 trials. These are the last stage of clinical trials before they could get market approval. In that category, there's about 42 phase 3 trials worldwide, and they are primarily looking at blood cancers, autoimmune disease, and heart disease. So I would say they're the likely candidates to get approved as products and procedures.
Okay, what are the benefits of stem cell research compared to other types of treatments for these diseases?
The big benefit is they're your own cells. And that way, when you're using your own cells, your body's not going to reject them. When you're talking about drugs, some of them work, some of them don't. Not everybody's body responds well to them. But these are your own cells. So then the question is, will they be effective in the treatment? And there's so much going on in the clinic right now. The outlook is extremely positive. So the trend line is positive. I think over the next few years, 5 years, you're going to see many approved products and procedures that use stem cells.
Now we're talking about people taking their own cells, storing it, and then potentially using their own cells to treat a disease.
Correct.
But can people use others' stem cells?
So there are public banks, for example, in the umbilical cord blood banking industry. They do bank some of that material for public use, meaning you bank it from one child and then you can use it for another or an adult potentially. Our services are primarily for the person that banked the cells. That doesn't mean there are situations where the bone marrow could potentially be donated. But what we're doing is for what we call autologous use, meaning use for the donor only.
Where do you see the stem cell banking going in the future?
Well, I think, I bank my own cells, for peace of mind, and because I believe that medicine is heading in a direction where we are all going to be treating our diseases and injuries with our own cells. So I think, now is the time. This is the perfect time. We're at a special point in the evolution of medicine and stem cells and regenerative medicine, and this is the inflection point. And I think this is perfect timing for this.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this very interesting information with us.
Thank you.
You're watching Studio One from the University of North Dakota. We'll be right back after this.
Closed captioning for Studio One is underwritten in part by NDAD, helping others to help themselves.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
The University of North Dakota is a place where students thrive, where they learn from leading experts, share discoveries, and create knowledge. Experience our expertise. Creative, innovative, entrepreneurial, spirited. This is the University of North Dakota.
Most people don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. My time clock is around the clock. My ideas are fresh, but they need research and development. My business plan includes marketing strategies, legal documents, and a budget. My startup became possible through mentorship, hands-on experience, and learning from experts in the field. The Center for Innovation has contributed to more than 400 University of North Dakota student startups. Come with an idea. Leave with a business.
Studio One is a television show produced by students at the University of North Dakota.
You can be a part of the graphics team, the marketing team, news team, programming team, production team.
Training never ends.
You get to produce guests, you get to do the reporting side of it.
It's really worth the experience. You will not regret it.
Tune in next week on Studio One. We'll visit a house that displays a synchronized light show for the holidays. Plus, we'll have other news and entertainment stories for you.
And we're going to leave you now with pictures of evergreens getting dressed for the season. From all of us here at Studio One, have a great week.